Okay, so hello everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to I already lost track what number of live this is, but today we have Daniel Goodrich, who is a lawyer that specializes in entrepreneurial businesses. So Daniel, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Alexandria. I'm Danny Goodrich, founder of Virtual Counsel. I am what I like to say sometimes, recovering corporate attorney. I have years and years of experience in large organizations, corporate world, and I've systematically pared down and taken major risks over time to build out what I have today as Virtual Counsel. It's a virtual law firm that gives the ability for small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs like yourselves to access legal at a relatively low budget and a relatively friendly face. You're here in my home office, which is one of my, one of the things of Virtual Counsel. We can do it from anywhere.
I love the background of your office.
I hope it's okay. It makes me happy, so I think it makes others happy as well.
Yeah, you can totally tell. It's a very San Diego vibe, which I love. Daniel, how did you end up being Virtual Counsel? You told us a little bit about it, but how did you end up being a lawyer and skewing towards business?
Yeah, we have a little time here, so I'll give you the history. I'm from New York originally, and New York is a place, if you're familiar with it, you'll know. If you're not, you've probably heard, is win, 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 go, go, go. Climb the ladder as quick and as fast and as high as you can. And so, to be completely honest, law school was an intellectual challenge and a way to potentially skip rungs on those ladders. I was working in the music industry at the time, and one of my boss just signed a new client. It was a Wednesday at 11 a.m. and he was popping champagne at Wednesday at 11 a.m. with a new client, right? A music artist, a rapper. I thought that was really cool. I asked him how to get where he was, and law school was the choice. So that was now 10 years ago. I might be dating myself a little bit, but at this point, what I've realized is the practice of law is so antiquated in a lot of ways. The business of law, the industry itself, runs on hourly billing, and it puts attorneys at odds with their clients, right? Have you ever had the opportunity to work with an attorney, Alexandria?
You mean the pleasure?
Right. It's usually not fun.
It's not. It's usually not.
It's usually not fun. It is generally formulaic. There are rules of engagement. There are we charge by the hour typically. We charge by the minute. Picking up the phone call for a question about your business will come with a bill typically, and that just never made sense to me. So as I found myself trying to understand where my place in the market is, it certainly wasn't popping champagne with rappers. That was just that seemed fun at the time. I have far more, I'd like to say, altruistic endeavors. I'd like to work with clients who are purpose-driven, sustainability-driven, building out businesses that help others, a lot like yours. And I'd imagine the folks who are watching this live right now can relate to. And how do I service them? Do I charge them by the hour? It never made sense. And so that's what brought me to Virtual Counsel. It gave me an ability to use technology to run my business from anywhere in the world, which is very similar to the majority of my clients, or the clients who gravitate towards this type of service. They pop open a laptop and get their work done when and where needed. Using technology also gives me the ability to be incredibly efficient. And the efficiency equates to lower rates and guaranteed rates, nothing hourly.
That's awesome. And what I do love is that it mitigates that fear of picking up your phone to talk to your lawyer, and it can actually become enjoyable. We've had a couple of conversations over a couple of legal issues, and it's always been a pleasure to speak with you. So I really appreciate how you're transforming this field, and making it work for people like us, because really, $300 an hour, that's the thing. Usually lawyers charge per hour, and it's a pretty penny per hour what they're gonna charge. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and look, just one more thing on that point. I think it's important to note that your attorney, your corporate counsel, your lawyer, whatever word you want to use for it, at least with respect to a business, should be on your side, right? We have a mutual interest of you growing your business. And so a strategic partnership is really what it is and what I'm trying to develop with my clients. I operate in a lot of ways as, to use a word that we're all familiar with, a coach or a consultant, more so than your lawyer, right? And we're talking outside of litigation and suing people and bloody things. We're talking about growing businesses. I love working with people who are looking really for peace of mind and a second set of eyes on a document or a deal or a negotiation. And really, the ability to talk out with a trusted advisor, a strategic partner, about what they should do and what they shouldn't do. That's what I'm driving for. Is not to, not to have this arm's length relationship with, a client and an attorney, right? It's pretty formulaic that way. I'm trying to build strategic partnerships with my clients.
That's awesome. So, how are you set up with your business? We know that virtually most of it, but what does that entail for you? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, are you interested in sort of the nitty gritty? Because I can nerd out on tech with you right now.
Well, we'll do an overview. They can get the nitty gritty out.
Yeah, so I use Slack as a main value add. I started using Slack primarily as a way to operate efficiently. I had used it in many of my startups before. I wore many hats in many different businesses in the past, and Slack is just an incredible way to communicate internally. At least it's designed to communicate internally on a team, and this team is typically a remote team. What I developed is a way to use Slack in a way it was never intended, for individual client confidential portals, not an internal team, but rather a way to organize data and documented communication. Ease of communication is absolutely key. So that's a main way I set up virtual counsel, is to plug right into the systems that my clients are already using. And if they're not, they kind of should be.
Yeah, that's great. And then without, breaching confidentiality, what are some of the common questions that come up from entrepreneurs or solopreneurs that are kind of starting in this field?
Sure. Yeah. Let's focus on solopreneurs, because that is what I'd imagine a lot of folks attending the conference, watching this live, are going to relate to. A lot of folks who are quote unquote solopreneurs are really do-it-yourself types. I often call a lot of my clients DIY CEOs, because they're absolutely doing everything from setting up a website, social media, graphic design, building out service contracts, which gets to your question of what's the main question, and then delivering on all the service contracts that they end up selling, which sales is another hat that the DIY CEO has. The questions that come up to answer your question are: is my contract legally enforceable? What do I do when one of my clients asks for a refund or cancels, or the credit card doesn't go through? What can I do, and what can I do with respect to my client engagement? Who owns the content that I'm providing? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of questions around this area that shouldn't be holding you back from selling, or to use a dirty word, enrolling clients. And so that's one of the main things is service contracts and ownership of materials that come up often. Other things are even down to the bare bones of a solopreneur. Do I operate as a sole proprietor, set up an LLC? Does a corporation make sense? When do I bring on partners? How should I employ people? Should I employ them as a W-2 employee, which is often comes with a lot of obligations that aren't. Yeah, so your face there is it's like scary.
No, don't do that yet.
Right? Or do they remain as a contractor? At what point do they rise to the level of employee? And how do we put a plan in place to handle that? That's another big thing. That's your face told it all. That's why I love interviews like this, because it's true. It's a little scary whenever somebody else interacts or touches your business, whether they're employees or partners, or even your clients have some access to you and your business by way of your coaching and your content. It just raises risk and therefore raises fear. And we in this space shouldn't operate in fear.
Yeah. And it's great. I love that you're actually, being a part of the conference, because it's something that is not a lot of our zones of genius. I know for a fact, and you and I have had multiple conversations on this, that legal stuff is not my zone of genius. And like my eyes glaze over. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm done. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate with that. And so it is very scary, because you're building a company that, overnight, if it's not done properly, could be taken away legally, right? And so you're leaving yourself exposed if you don't know what to do and what steps to take. So it is great to have someone like you kind of there holding their hands, because I know, plenty of people actually that still bill like a 1099, which is like a contractor, right? With their name. Right. Not even an LLC. And so that leaves them open to a lot of problems in the future for their company, tax-wise and everything else. That really needs to stop. So having a conversation with someone like you that can make it kind of easy and almost fun, I feel like they will benefit so much from.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I mean, I really relate to you with what you say about the zone of genius, right? As a business owner myself, I have certain zones of genius, and then sometimes I really, really don't, right? Social media being one of them. So focusing on what you're good at and what your zone of genius is key, and that's where having professionals like attorneys, like accountants, tax is a huge thing that you shouldn't be thinking about. Unless tax excites you, and which it does some people.
I'm like, numbers excite me, Excels excite me, but taxes don't really.
Exactly.
So what are you most excited about for a Conscious Coach Conference?
I'm excited about having the opportunity to do this live. There's an energy in a room. And we spoke a little bit about this offline. I get a little nervous with social media, right? Because it's unclear how, who I'm speaking to, who my audience is, how far this message will go. In a live event, I don't know, I really feed off of people's energies, and I'm looking forward in particular after my talk, to interact with individuals who, relate to my message and have questions about their business. That's what I'm most excited about.
Okay, and I should warn you that the event will be live streamed as well, so it won't.
Oh no!
To the people in the room. So
look, we all have to get out of our comfort zones, right? And so thanks for the opportunity to do so.
Gonna push you to growth. Hey, I have always disliked lives, but here I am, everyone. So if I can do it, so can you and everyone else.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to be talking about and bringing to the table at a Conscious Coach Conference? What can they expect to learn from you?
Sure. Yeah. The thrust of my talk will be how to bulletproof your business and sleep well at night. I may even adjust it to use some terminology that we just came up with zone of genius, because that's really what I'm going to focus on. how to handle your business like a business, and make sure that it's rock solid from a legal perspective, but also from a corporate and organizational perspective, right? So that you can focus on what's most important is, in most coaches' cases, serving their clients. I'd imagine there will be some in the audience who are in the position to scale their business and have multiple people or multiple coaches working in their organization. And I'll tailor my talk a little bit towards that, but really, the audience can look forward to something very tailored to the solopreneur. How to achieve a level of sophistication without spending thousands and thousands of dollars on legal work.
And I do have a question before we open up to questions. So if any of the viewers or any of the people who are watching the replay have questions, please drop them below and we will have Danny answer them now or later on. With the whole legality, because this is what you do, this is in my zone of genius, and it's always, when people, can't remember restructure this. So overall, I see culturally in the US, people are very, very excited to sue one another and hop onto legal battles, right? But that also can really reflect really badly on your business. So what is your opinion or your advice on, if payments aren't going through with a client, a lot of people have had that happen, or they're just breaking contract. Is there like a certain number where you're like, oh, if it's past this amount, I would pursue legal action and like have a letter written? Or what do you do with like debt collection and that kind of, like, when is it a good time to enter legalities?
It's an excellent question. And to put on my attorney hat, I will have to say it depends. But here are the scenarios that often come up with my clients who are either coaches or consultants or have services, right? It happens regularly, right? And if it hasn't happened to you in your business, that's great. And I'm not bringing on bad energy, but it can and will happen. So having first a plan in place to address it. Ideally, that plan is written in the contract so that the client is aware of the protocol. If you're in a situation where there is no plan or it's not very clearly written in your agreement, here is the advice that I give my clients. First off, how much money is at stake? When a lot of coaches have, quote unquote, high ticket programs, and a lot of coaches who are very good at enrollment will get that payment in one lump sum up front. But oftentimes, and I would argue almost all the time, that money doesn't really belong to you until a certain amount of services are provided. And so again, it's a case-by-case basis, but I will look to, I'll evaluate how much money is at stake, how much the coach has provided in terms of services to the client. Really, how long have they been involved in working together? Are they really dissatisfied with the service, or is the client just experiencing something very, very difficult in their transformation by working with the coach? That's something that comes up often, and I, in a way, operating as a coach to my clients who are coaches, right, will empower them with the ability to pick up the phone and really investigate why this person is looking for a refund or stopping payments. And at the end of the day, I really want my clients, and I believe they want the same, to focus on their zone of genius, what is most important, right? And time and energy and resources spent going to collect money oftentimes isn't worth it. So oftentimes it's a learning lesson if there's a refund request. You can always send to collections, which is a way about it as well. But those are the sort of things that I'll evaluate on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and then, so I'm going to open up, thank you for that. I'm going to open up for questions also from the viewers, and then if not, I have another question.
Sure.
As I write this. So my next one is, and this has just been in my experiences of having multiple businesses prior to now a Conscious Coach Conference, and with contracts. And I've even seen it, and I'm going to be honest here with the Conscious Coach, where we've had agreements and we've had contracts and people break them. And it's just kind of like, okay. And I'm like, so what do you say to that? And what are ways to maybe lock people into contracts where they don't treat them? It's almost like they treat contracts with disrespect, right? We have an agreement and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I have an agreement, but whatever kind of thing. So what would you advise either beforehand or after to do in that situation?
Certainly beforehand, the tone and format and level of sophistication of your contract goes oftentimes much further than what's written in the contract. And so with solopreneurs who are DIY CEOs, who will oftentimes rip a template offline and it's riddled with typos and isn't formatted correctly and isn't wrapped in an LLC, or someone's operating as John Smith, the coach, not John Smith LLC. That is what leads to what you bring up. People just not respecting the contract itself. The onboarding process, the collection of credit card, if that's how you're taking payment, to communication after the contract, all of these things are incredibly important to having a level of sophistication in the eyes of the person you're serving. So that's on the front end. On the back end, if someone pulls out of a contract anyway, despite your best efforts of, serving them, giving them a high level of sophistication, and even getting on the phone with them and understanding or trying to understand what the issue is, that's when we would go to the letter of the law, right? What's in the contract? What was intended between the parties? How much money is at stake? And what's the best course of action to move forward?
Awesome. And then a follow-up question with that is, because I've had, again, multiple businesses, right? And so when I did consulting, which was with corporate, I had very big, hefty contracts, right? Because we were talking about big bucks, right? And I was coming in and modifying their company culture and everything else. So sometimes they would be 5, 8-page long contracts with this description of services and everything else. And I found that more times than not, it really scared the clients. So what is your opinion on that, of having like these detailed contracts? And then people, I even have a girlfriend who had a very ironclad contract like that, and the client walked. And I told her it was, good news that they walked now than presenting problems later. But what do you say about that? Kind of, especially if it's coaching, because it's a person like one-on-one kind of thing. It's not corporation it's not B2B.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
B2B versus B2C is really important. And it brings me to tone. Tone of the contract is something that I pride myself on when working with clients, because there are, there's exactly what you're talking about, right? A contract that could be big and scary that is just maybe not necessary, even though there's a lot of money at stake. You can protect yourself and also maintain the same level and the same tone and the same tone of all your other marketing and sales materials and who you really are, without it being too legalese and scary. On the other hand, a large base of my clients are technology groups, right? Software companies that are oftentimes contracting up or negotiating up. And what I mean there is they're looking to provide a software solution for, Pepsi, Philips, GM, some of the largest organizations in the world. And so the tone of that agreement just absolutely has to, and often does, read differently. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it does. And it makes sense that, in those bigger situations, I mean, it's legal talking to legal, because that whether it's Pepsi, Coca-Cola, or whoever else, they will have a legal team that revises their contract, right, before they sign anything. So that makes sense.
Okay.
So we're going to open up one more time. Any other questions that people may have? Take advantage of Daniel now. And as I say with most of the lies, and not the next time you see him, we'll be at a Conscious Coach conference and you'll have to pay. Do you have anything else that you want to add while people are asking questions and mustering up the strength? I mean, how many days do you have a lawyer here ready to answer your legal questions, guys? Come on.
Another question that often comes up while we're waiting for questions is tax, right? And that's something that I often will refer out, right? You should have an accountant or at least a bookkeeper to to address that. But when it comes to solopreneurs, right, who operate as a sole proprietor, it's really important to look at the full picture, right? Not just protecting yourself, not just essentially protecting your clients by giving them the level of sophistication that they deserve and that you need for your business, but how do we maximize tax benefits? And so tax is something I'd be happy to on the side on a case-by-case basis talk about because it comes up often. I'm sure it's on everybody's mind and nobody wants it on their mind.
Good old Uncle Sam needs his allowance.
Right.
So I do have one question that came up since they haven't mustered up the courage yet to ask any questions.
Sure.
Could you give us a brief just overview, because I know a lot of confused between them of C Corp, S Corp, and LLC, and then what are kind of, because I know certain ones of them have tax benefits, and it can just be a high level overview. But give them a further understanding of what is out there as options for entrepreneurs.
Well, I'll start with the smallest, is sole proprietor. That is always an option, and it may make sense depending on how much money you're planning on bringing in at the end of the day. If you have an annual revenue of under 6 figures, it could make the most tax sense to remain a sole proprietor. An LLC is typically what I recommend for folks who are solopreneurs building out a consulting or a coaching business, any type of service business, because of its flexibility, especially if you're operating as an individual, you don't have other partners. It's simple, it's cheaper to set up, and it can and does enjoy, if you make the right election at the right time, an S Corp tax treatment.
Oh, okay.
So the LLC with S Corp tax treatment is the magic bullet for solopreneurs, generally speaking, and this is all on a case-by-case basis, of course. And the reason being we can get into in person some other time. But you mentioned C Corp and S Corp, so I wanted to bring up S Corp. Those are just simply two different bodies of tax law. The IRS will treat a corporation as a C Corp or an S Corp, and an LLC can enjoy an S Corp tax treatment. So I typically don't recommend setting up as a corporation unless there is a good reason to do so. And one of those reasons might be you're looking to bring on funding, investment. You have more than one partner. You have a desire for multiple layers of equity. These are for maybe a little more complex business structures that can make sense at some point. But typically an LLC with the S Corp tax treatment, that does the trick.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. So it doesn't seem like anyone else has legal questions. Apparently they're good. If not, they might call you soon.
Yeah, I'm happy to help at any time now or before or after the conference.
Yeah, so can you tell me your website and I'll add it in?
www.virtualcounsel.com. AT virtual counsel, COUNSEL.com.
Okay, so there is Daniel's website where you can contact him, ask him any more questions that you may have. He is absolutely fantastic, can answer and listen to all of your questions. I've had him in a boardroom more than once, just like giving him my ideas, like, I don't know what to do. So
We're overdue for another whiteboarding session.
yes, we are due for a whiteboard session. And I am so close today. So, but thank you so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. We are so excited for you to be at the conference. And
It's my pleasure.
thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our viewers with today?
No, just that I'm looking forward to meeting each of you in person to the extent that I can and help out as much as I possibly can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.